So, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And nice to have everybody here. If you're joining us, in the recorded version, welcome. I'm Jan Jeremias, one of your hosts today. I'm an integrative health and wellness coach and author who works with people and pets to help them overcome health challenges and live healthier lives. And I'm really excited to be joined today on stage with my co-host, collaborator, and dear friend, the amazing and very kind Mary Jane McQueen. And Mary Jane, if you could introduce yourself, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, good day, everyone. I thank you, Jan. As always, it is a blessing for me to be here in presence with all of you. And special shout out to my, yes, friend and collaborator, Jan Jeremiah. She is awesome and she's always putting her bright light out into the world. And I'm just honored to be here. And I am a graphic designer. I have my own creative studio, and although I do many aspects of graphic design, a focus of mine is supporting my fellow entrepreneurs to get their mission and vision out into the world in a way that feels authentic to them with their logo branding and whatever else that they might need. And so it is my joy to be here. And thank you so much for your grace in being present with us today. And I will begin. The poem today is called Be Still, My Soul, and it's by Jennifer Healy. Don't speak just yet. Sink into this place. Sit in your heart. Close your eyes if you must. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel the beating of your heart. When the mind is quiet, you will understand that sweet, deep awareness opens the gates to another kind of land. There's no way to hold peace in the palm of your hand. It's a mind, body, spirit state where everything holds abundance and magic, even a tiny grain of sand. Be still, my soul. Hear the winds speak, and watch how the leaves on the branches blow to and fro. There can be thunder and rain, pleasure or pain, but here you are still, and that is enough. Stop, look, and listen. See how wonderful it is, but don't think just yet, for thoughts can be beautiful pathways, but they can make you forget the truth of yourself, how you were born of your own star stuff. Be still, look, and listen. Even a mind must rest to create its best. So do not worry, dear heart, head, and hands. You will have your season to work and to play. And there is time enough for all, every single day. There is no time to make no plans. And what are the mysteries? How to piece the puzzle together? Must you always struggle to know the unknown better? No, you must be sure the silence you scurry away from is misunderstood. It is not nothing, it is everything. Like the color white or the other side of the world at night. If you stop and see what is here to see, and if you listen only to what your ears hear, you will feel yourself. Dear soul, melt into the moment, and peace will be near. Even in the middle of the night, the light of life is right here, in this space always. This space is all you could ever hold dear. Be still, old soul. Feel yourself alive right here. Stop waiting to start living. Stop time and be lived. Hear the sweet melody of your stillness and the music that it gives.
Thank you, Mary Jane. What a beautiful poem. And I love the line, stop time and be lived. Just something about that line really um, touches me. So, welcome everyone to From Rush to Rest, the stop method for everyday calm. We welcome you with open hearts and quiet reverence into this sacred pause, into this intentional breath, into this moment that belongs to no one else but you. In a world that often asks us to go faster, do more, and keep pushing through, we invite you to do the opposite, to slow down, to exhale, to remember the calm that still lives inside you, even when the world feels loud. This gathering is more than a meeting, it's a sanctuary. And here we sit down the weight of urgency and let go of the myth that our worth is measured by our productivity. Here we honor rest as a radical restorative act. Here we connect not just with each other, but with a deeper, quieter knowing within. And so together we'll explore the stop method. Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. A gentle, grounded way to shift from reactivity to presence, from chaos to clarity, from striving to simply doing and being. Let this be your soft landing. Let this be your breath between sentences. Let this be your invitation to return not to a task, not to a to-do list or a to-do list, but to yourself. Thank you for choosing to be here. Thank you for saying yes to the pause. Thank you for allowing this moment to hold you. You are safe here. You are seen. You are supported. And let us begin the conversation today.
It's so true, isn't it, Jan? And I love how you were sharing. It's like, let this be your soft landing, because as we know, we can all be our own worst critic, and we need that. Um, I can say from personal experience, this past week, um, there have been times, where, especially right now, I feel like there's a lot of busyness happening, and so I was actually looking forward to today's conversation because it gave me an opportunity to just pause and be in a space where there's a lot of great energy and uplifting. And I know it's this week has also given us an opportunity, and I'm going to call it an opportunity for those that may be struggling and feeling a little heavy and a little bit lost and overwhelmed, to hopefully be able to take a bit of a pause and to be able to lean on the support of other people to get through um, whatever challenges may be facing them. And sometimes the biggest challenge, I speak from personal experience, is me. I am the biggest challenge. So, um, my expectations of myself, the inner critic, the one that keeps trying to tell me that I'm not doing enough. But like I said, I was really looking forward to today's topic about the stop method because it really just, like it says, it really encourages you to really pause. And it's a mindfulness thing. It's a thing that you can use not just right now, but as you go through life, to take those moments. So,
And I agree, Mary Jane. And I think this sometimes the hardest thing to do is stop.
yes.
Um, it really is. I think, for whatever reason, and we sometimes not only are we our worst critics and we drive ourselves too hard, but busyness is a great distraction. It's a great way to prevent yourself from experiencing what it is you need to experience. And so, and there are, endless, endless opportunities out there to distract ourselves and to busy ourselves with things so that we don't pause and we don't stop. But after years of experience, what I've found that if I don't stop, I am stopped. The universe has a way of stopping me. It just happens that way, whether that be physical illness, where all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can't, your body says, okay, stop, like you're going to have to rest, or whether that is in somewhere else in your life where all of a sudden you're paused and forced to rest or stop and pause. And that's, we have to look at that as a valuable gift, when we are stopped in some way. So, yeah, I love this idea of stopping and the power that it holds for each one of us when we do stop. Um, and we do pause and we take a moment. And that's what the acronym um, stands for, is to stop. S for stop. Pause what you're doing or thinking. T to take a breath, a conscious breath, an intentional breath. O to observe, to notice your internal experience, your internal landscape, thoughts, emotions, body sensations without judgment. And then P to proceed, to move forward with the awareness that you've gained, making a mindful, intentional choice versus a reactive decision or just doing something without thinking at all. So, Seamus?
Yeah, thanks, Jan. Yeah, it's lovely. The poem is lovely, as usual. And conversation, like there's a couple of key words about observe, about disconnect, about connection, about disconnect from the busy world, about connection to, literally our inside out and creating space for that, like through this whole process of pausing, like of stopping, take a breath, observe, and proceed. And it's back to that wonderful book I mentioned it the last couple of weeks, Jack Cornfield, like The Wise Heart, that you recommended to me, Jan, like it must be a month or so ago. I'm still making my way through it, but one of the things he talked about, like, was the gift of considered and compassionate thought. And I think that's what emerges when you create that space, because, I immediately thought then of the burden of the opposite, like the burden of ill-considered, inner critical thought that often is present. And I think that's the opportunity that arises out of pause. It's actually literally stopping to create space to appreciate the gift that's always there of checking in on the thought, checking in what we're telling ourselves. And is that true? How accurate is that? And then, through the whole process of stop, you can then begin to proceed through challenging that inner narrative and operating from the space of the heart, which Jack Cornfield speaks about as one of the key themes in A Wise Heart. You can actually connect to the wisdom of the heart, which is by far more powerful than the transient nature of the thoughts and the narratives. And that for me is maybe a beautiful part of the proceed practice is, once you take the time to stop, to take a breath, to observe, the next steps are from that space, you can then begin to connect to heart, the wise heart, as the pure foundation of love for ourselves that overpowers all the other transient identities and thoughts that emerge. And from that foundation, it can be a great space from which to actually reconnect to what really matters and to engage with the practical challenges with from a new lens and with a new, from a solid foundation with a new lens, I guess, that enables us to actually put in perspective the things that we can create, to see through and see what they really are, and the importance we attach to them. And I suppose the last thing I would say is that Jack Cornfield came up with a beautiful process that ties into this theme as well, which is he called it the RAIN process, or AIN, but I relabeled it to the RAID process, and it appeals more to me because it's but we almost raid our own beauty and our own wisdom, and through this process of RAID, which is recognize, accept, investigate, and I put he talked about non-identification as being the RAIN, but I put in a D instead of the N at the end, which is detach. And we can, through that foundation of heart, detach from the power of the narrative we create and the transiency of that narrative, and really allow us to actually move through and diffuse a lot of the power of the narrative from the pause and connection to heart, and operating more from that space and feeling and experiencing the power of the power of connection to heart, and allowing ourselves to operate from that space in a world full of challenge and full of busy thoughts and busy doings, you know. So thanks so much, John and Mary Jane.
It's such valuable insights too, and I like that. Yeah, I really like your the way you were talking about how you changed at the end to a D, because detached, because sometimes we get so attached to that the negative thoughts and the energy that's coming through us, and but detaching, that's a really key um point to understand, and also how you were talking about the connection to inside. I wrote these down, Seamus, just so you know. Connection to inside, and disconnection from basically the outside. So I love that. It's the pause. There is a sacredness in the pause. And once we sort of recognize that, we realize that it has such a great power to assist us as we go through our day-to-day life in this often busy world, or as I like to say, busy in our busyness. So I just love that. So thank you for sharing those insights.
Yeah, thank you, Seamus. And a few of the things that just made me think about what you were saying is this idea of one is of stopping. And it is that, like, almost to me, I feel like, literally like stopping in your tracks. Like that's how it feels to me. It seems very, maybe because it is intentional and it's deliberate. And so it just feels very action oriented to me. And so that pattern disrupt, or that pause. And then I know that with heart math and other things that we all practice, or many of us practice different types of breathing, and that moment to breathe, which is vital. Like it just, and because I think of in my busyness, how often I stop consciously breathing. And I think that especially when people are stressed and overwhelmed, we tend to breathe very shallowly and not take very conscious deep breaths. And so that is that way of like anchoring you in, of embodying you so that you can, like, you stop and then you feel that. And I think there's something very powerful about that. Just that, those two things alone. Um, yeah, Mary Jane, did you want to say something?
No, it was just basically, yeah, it's a very valuable point. I mean, it's just, and what an awesome tool it is, because you don't need to, it's both portable and practical. You can take it with you wherever you go, and it really is, often we might experience in our day-to-day lives those moments where we have the, panic or anxiety, or maybe even irritation with something that's going on. But but what a valuable tool to have, something that we can just really encourage us to take some thoughtful action for our own well-being. Sometimes we're so busy caregiving for others, we forget to caregive for ourselves, and that's key.
Absolutely. And one of the things you said earlier, Mary Jane, and that was like that of that pattern of thinking. And I think because Seamus had mentioned it in what he shared. And not only do I think that first of all, we don't even realize our patterns of thinking. I think it's until we start practicing, and then all of a sudden, or, you know, trying to observe or become aware of it. I don't really know. I think they become such, like, almost habits and programmed into us so deeply that we don't even realize them. And then all of a sudden you're like, I think I've been talking over the past few weeks, you're like, oh, okay, there I am again. There I'm thinking about that again, or there that's on my mind again. And I think that that's really interesting. And one of the things that I think the observation does, at least for me, and I think you spoke about it also, Mary Jane, earlier, was this idea of compassion and self, and love that you have for yourself. Because I think that what ends up happening is, you have to you start to put down the armor a little bit, and you start to delve a little deeper and realize that you are, I think that you're a human being and that there is something, not in a negative way, but you are not a robot and you're not a machine. And there is this inherent, I almost think of that vulnerability and um, the beauty that someone holds. And I don't know that that's recognized unless you're willing to look at it. It's like you have to observe to be able to see it. It's like seeing a piece of nature outside, some beautiful landscape. And let's say the landscape is you. And what do you do when you see a beautiful landscape? Like, you experience it, like you stop and you take a moment, you pause and you breathe and you are present, you observe it. And that's the only way I think you can see that beauty within.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And yeah, well, I mean, that's why my mission is to spread kindness, empathy, and compassion to self first, and then throughout the world, ripple that out into the world. And so I think it's only by bringing that compassion to ourselves, by bringing that pause, that stop, and maybe not only just in times of stress. I mean, this is a very effective tool too. The stop method is a very effective. Just to get in the habit of pausing before you get to that point where you're in the reaction state of mode, and it really can help to transform the relationships, even your productivity, and just overall well-being. And of course it ties in because it is a mindfulness practice as well. So just thank you for that, Jan.
Oh, you're welcome. And I do think, yes, it is something that you can practice all the time. And like you mentioned, portable. I always say to people, like, you can breathe anywhere. You can consciously take a deep breath no matter where you are. And so, and the other thing is, no one needs to know you're doing it. So you don't have to feel bad. Like, it's not like other practices, like, where you might feel awkward or uncomfortable because you don't want to draw attention to yourself.
Absolutely. Like maybe you don't want to walk around doing a mantra out loud and
Exactly, exactly. Or a specific body position that might, which, makes you feel empowered or something. Like, maybe you don't want to do that in public. But, that's when bathrooms are really good.
I
Speaking
love
from
that.
speaking from experience, when you need that moment of, like, kind of, you're like, okay, I'll just go stand in the bathroom in a really great stance, and then I can go out in the world. So, Al.
Yeah, I think this all comes from the mindfulness stop skill. They call it the DBT,
Hmm.
dialectical behavior therapy,
Hmm.
which is a cognitive behavioral therapy from Los Angeles. Yeah. So like the STOP acronym stands for S for stop, take a brief pause. T for take a breath, take a deliberate and mindful breath, focusing on inhalation and exhalation. O for observe, acknowledge your thoughts, feelings, and the environment without judgment. And P is for proceed mindfully, proceed with intentionality and choosing a response consciously. So this is a very good. I found the acronym, which is from the mindfulness stop skill, and I believe also that we can also look from our position from our root, the roots from where we are, the root chakra. So starting from the ground and going up towards the crown from our 7 chakras. So
Hmm.
that's what we think is it's a good skill, whenever, like what you say, you go to the toilet and then maybe before putting out your makeup and all that, you just close your eyes and do the stop skill, something. Putting out your lipstick and all that before you go out to a major event or something. Yeah, makeup. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's it from my side. Maybe others can share. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. I love that. Yeah, part of your, and I think it's really valuable to make it part of your routine, like to find a place to fit it in, especially since it takes such a short period of time. I think it's originally attributed to John Kabat-Zinn, wonderful, wonderful um, teacher and guide, um, who was the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction. And so I think that some of the earlier work with this stop method, and I think I have to be honest, I think one of the things I love about it is the fact that it's easy to remember. Like that word stop is a word that we all tend to know. So it's very easy to sit there and grab it when you're feeling stressed, like even if you just say the word stop to yourself and then proceed. And if you don't remember what it is, you just kind of pause and breathe, but that whole idea of that word and being able to remember that what those letters stand for, I think is really powerful because that makes it very available. Seamus?
Yeah, I think there's also the immediate payback of this. Like, so when you begin to observe, it's like the chicken and egg, you notice, then you observe something that you were too busy or distracted to observe, and then you take a breath, and then you immediately, like almost instantly, feel the benefit and the immediate payback of this practice. So, I mean, that's a strong reinforcer, I think, of the power of that process of the noticing, the observing, the engaging, experiencing. Oh gosh, yeah, I needed that kind of the immediate relief. And then, the reminder of this experience as the next time I feel like this, I'm going to actually embark and practice this process in a more deliberate way. And I think it's through practice that we can begin to allow this to become part of our everyday process. I guess that we become more attuned to noticing, and then we feel the immediate benefit of that noticing, and it's a channel then to kind of allowing ourselves to better engage with stressful and difficult situations, whether with other people or situations, and whatever happens in our lives. It's a great way for us to practice a tool that has an immediate benefit and immediate payback, I suppose. And just the other thing I was thinking about, John, was as you were speaking there as well, was when we take that breath, other people don't have to necessarily notice. But even the other thing I was thinking about there was that when we do take a breath and other people do notice, that actually has an immediate payback in terms of inviting the other person, if they notice, that we've taken a breath, they can begin to become immediately curious about the power of that, of simply observing you take a breath. It's a kind of an automatic invitation for them to notice as well. And that's my own experience just working with clients. That I would even on Zoom I would sometimes take a breath. I just remember one client in particular that I took a deep breath without knowing it, without any intention around it, of just doing it automatically. And immediately there was an impact on because she observed me taking that breath, and it had an immediate impact. So I think we shouldn't underestimate the impact of that process within ourselves, but how that transmits to other people as well.
Thank you for saying that, Seamus, because I absolutely love that. Um, this idea of someone watching you and reminding them of taking a deep breath and possibly even, to me, getting curious about it or asking about it. Because, like I said, I don't really know that people really think about it as a tool. It's probably one of my most valuable tools that I use, but I really do think it's a really valuable tool. And then the other thing I think in that immediate playback, that immediate benefit, I mean, which is so amazing that you brought that up. And then the other thing is to actually celebrate or to acknowledge yourself for doing it. So having an experience, and even though, like, even if you react and maybe you do a slight interruption, so maybe there is some sort of like a decrease in some sort of reactivity or some sort of response that you have, is to acknowledge the fact that you did it, because it only, it just keeps on getting easier and easier to do and to sort of bring into your life. So that idea of just each time you do it is like, oh, okay, well done. You know,
Yeah, and that's so true. I was thinking along those same lines when Seamus was speaking, and what you sort of alluded to now, Jen, is like it's a really powerful tool that we can, have with us anywhere and at any time. And yeah, I mean, I love the fact that even if somebody does observe you taking a deep breath, I recall being a little child, and I would be upset about something, not angry, but just upset about something. And it's funny, my one of the things my mom used to say to me would be, just take a breath. Which is kind of interesting because, it's one of those childhood lessons. And of course, she wasn't necessarily into with mindfulness practices, but she realized as a mom, I guess, that the power of just taking a moment and breathing and realizing that, that to sort of step back from that, because that's the thing, right? I mean, it just stopping in all of the parts of the acronym, it really just it interrupts that sort of mental, the mental loop that we keep going in and in when we're reacting to something. And so it's just really that age-old thing that we still have even after all of these decades of evolution, is that fight or flight response. So just as Seamus was talking about, sometimes just taking a step back, taking a deep breath, it reduces that reactivity. I guess is the point I was trying to make, is it really gives you that opportunity, and the other person as well, when they see you taking a deep breath, to take a deep breath of their own and maybe step back a little bit from that edge of reactivity. So I love that it's such a valuable tool, and it comes with us. So it's such a great way to really give us a really restored sense of stability and even focus, so we can make a better conscious decision instead of acting from the unconscious actions that we sometimes take, and then regret later. Or at least I speak from my own experience. Hopefully, I'm not alone.
you're not alone. Um, I think we all have experienced those times where we feel like, you know, the situation is controlling us. And the word that just came to mind when I was just even saying my own words, is this feeling of empowerment, I think, that comes from that place. Because I think what ends up happening when we're in situations like we're speaking of now that might be overwhelming or stressful or whatever, is this feeling of almost being like things are just so out of control that you have no power over what's happening. And so this is a way to feel not only empowered, but embodied and empowered. Um, and that you have the ability to, excuse me, you have the ability to make a choice about your response, which I think also obviously happens because it's coming from a better place. So hopefully it's a conscious choice, choice of awareness. Yes, embodied and empowered. Because I think we do. We feel, depending on the situation, you can feel vulnerable. There's a multitude of feelings that can come up. And many of those are this feeling of, being overwhelmed and feeling like things are beyond your control. So, yes, and energized. Thank you, Al. I agree that it is the possibility of feeling just, and I think that comes from being present, right? Because I think that, when you're present in everything. You're present in your body, you're present with your entirety, with who you are. So you have the ability to move from a place of that, which is that P for to proceed. You can then proceed from that place. And that I think is a really important, valuable thing because it's not like we're just moving forward. So, yes, you can stop and then observe and not sort of almost observe and not kind of embody that and not sort of take the information you're getting. And the information, I mean, like, what are your emotions? What are your thoughts? Like that, almost like this feeling of like my scientific brain will say data, like that information that's been given to you. And you can ignore that and then proceed, or you can bring it in and kind of look at it and say, okay, what would be the next best step based on, how I'm feeling, what's going on, what are my thoughts, what would be the next best step.
I love that concept of what is my next best step, because so often we can be so paralyzed by our thoughts and emotions, excuse me, that we become frozen, and so it's our next best step, whatever that is. And in fact, it even doesn't have to be our next best step. It's just taking that step, but only taking that step after we've taken that moment to pause and sort of reflect and then move forward, because it's really just it's I look at it as, it's an invitation by stopping, to just bring yourself back to the present moment.
And I love that, Mary Jane, that you said just the next step, because I think that also takes away the pressure of whatever's going on, that you have to know like the final solution, like the ultimate answer. It's like, okay, well, you have to solve whatever it is. And this just requires you to say, okay, I'm just going to take one step. And then you pause a little while later, and then you take another step. Al, did you want to share something again?
Yeah, I would say there's a saying called "the silence is golden." So
Mm-hmm.
there's this story. I was told to keep quiet for 5 minutes and collect 5 million. The fourth minute, they asked me, cash or transfer? I said transfer. So do you get the joke?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, when you keep quiet for 5 minutes, you cannot keep quiet. So you lose your 5 million because you didn't keep the promise of the 5 minutes. So you couldn't collect the 5 million because you said transfer. No, they asked you, and the fourth minute, they asked me cash or transfer. No, so I said transfer. So you lost the opportunity because of the of the 5 minute silence. That you can't keep.
That you can't keep.
Yeah, yeah. I think Mary got the joke. Mary Jane got the joke.
Yes, of course. I love it. And it's true. And sometimes sometimes it is difficult to keep the silence, but hopefully with the stop method, it gives you the opportunity to pause and then proceed with awareness and hopefully be aware when somebody's offering you money and trying to trip you up. So I love it. Thank you, Al, for the smile.
Yes, thank you, Al. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Any thoughts, please? Oh, good. Hello, Andrea. Welcome.
Hello. So,
Hello.
Andrea, welcome.
hi. Thank you for creating this space. It's really, I really resonate with what your intention. And yeah, this has been my my um my focus recently because, for example, I've learned a lot of, esoteric tools, like you mentioned, esoteric tools. I'm also trained in conflict transformation. I'm a peace builder and all that. But yeah, when we're operating from our program, from our day-to-day self, it's easy for all of that to go out the window. Like if so at times when I notice myself reacting from my wounded inner child instead of from the adult part of me that's trained in all these tools. So it takes me it makes me, think twice again and then be more mindful. And it looks like a very simple technique, but um it's actually essential and very I think it's a good technique because, for example, as we were talking about the about each step, what kept coming up for me was co-regulation, because that's also what I've observed. Like, for example, me personally, I grew up in a household where, my parents were also raised by their own parents who had their own traumas from their generation and all that, like from the Japanese War and all that. So basically, our household is always like very hyperactive, very, it tense. The energy is always tense, and then when there's a potential argument, it always escalates. So that's the program that I'm trying to deprogram myself from or unlearn. So yeah, and then co-regulation. That's a skill that I'm only learning now as an adult because I never experienced it from my parents. And um, as I as we were talking about this, the different steps, like taking a breath and then observing yourself. Where are you coming from? Are you coming from your grounded, balanced self, or are you coming from your wounded child, reactive self? Then how am I breathing? What's how's my body and all that, and how can I do things differently moving forward? And so that also reminds me of co-regulation. So um I've been in rooms where, even CEOs, even, negotiators, they forget all they're trained in because they're very reactive in that reactive space. And also the people they're having supposedly a dialogue with are also in a reactive state, so there's no co-regulation. But if only one of these people, and it's a reminder to myself as a as a mediator, as a peace builder, yeah, that being in that grounded space and helping people co-regulate by just breathing and by being mindful. So you also help them breathe and then take a step back, and you also de-escalate the emotions and the hyped up energy. So yeah, I love I'm even surprised that it's the first time I'm learning about this tool. And I've been googling about it, so it's part of CBT, so now I'm more interested about CBT and DBT. And yeah, I will use this definitely. And this space, even, the poem you read earlier, the tone of your voice, everyone's energy, it's already making me more calm again and embracing the slower pace that I've been yearning for for years. Because yeah, I consciously also resigned from my previous type of lifestyle where I'm always, there's barely time to breathe because of all the responsibilities. So I've been cutting back on all that and to live a more intentional life. So thank you for this space, and thank you for this tool and all your sharings.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrea, for sharing. And thank you. We're so glad that you came and that you're benefiting and enjoying and adding your energy to this space. We really appreciate you being here. And a few things that you shared were so valuable. And I think there is that ability that when you're in, the whole idea of de-escalating a situation that is heated or that is, has the potential to go beyond what you wanted. And also the mention of like, forgetting. And I think that that's what happens, that we forget. And all of a sudden we have things that happen and then we're reminded of the tools that we have or the things that we can do. And I truly believe that, what we teach, when we teach, we also kind of, when I speak to you guys, I'm speaking to myself, to be honest, in all honesty. I need to hear what I'm saying. And sometimes being in a room like this and sharing it with other people is that like it's benefiting me just as much as hopefully it's benefiting you all and vice versa. Is I think this way we get to say it out loud and we get to hear it in our own voice and it's things that we may know and we get to embody them. And I love this word, embody them more because, because we're actually talking them out loud and we're teaching ourselves. Zara, please.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing all your wisdom and hosting this show and yeah, allowing everyone to sort of share what they found works for them. I today accidentally came across something I wrote about 5 years ago, going back to when I was 16 and talking about self-regulation. Just at that same moment, you guys were talking about feeling out of control and that whole stop method thing. That's what exactly that experience was about. I came home one day to discover that there's a note in my sister's handwriting, and I couldn't even remember getting from the door into the kitchen before picking up the phone to try and find a flight for my mum to leave the country. And this was during the war of Iran, Iraq. And the note from my sister's handwriting was basically, Mum has to be in England within 24 hours, otherwise she's going to go blind. I never ever forget feeling like that. And I thought to myself, why are we in this position? How did we get trapped so badly? What if this happens to me one day? And I think that was one of the days I decided that I'm not going to allow, this to happen to her again or me again or anybody else in my family. But going back to, yeah, why was the reasons that we were under that position? And why was she there in the first place? And it all goes back to her relationship with her parents and wanting to get away. So I'm kind of looking for my Tri-Summit story to go, okay, these experiences were there for a reason. And, whether it was justice or karma or whether it was something to shake me so badly to go, okay, I need to get to the bottom of how can relationships be better. And so, yeah, I'm doing a lot of pausing. I'm doing a lot of stopping and thinking and evaluating and going, what's those best three stories that I can pull together to get that message through? And yeah, I have been doing, quite a lot of reflecting. And I just can't choose what these three stories are. So, yeah, if anybody knows my life and wants to give me a little jug to go, I think that's the best part. Seamus, hint, hint. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys because I think I could do with a bit of help just organizing my mind a bit. Because I do write them down, and I'm like, well, that's a good one, that's a good one, but like, what's going to get that message through properly and have the biggest impact? Because I want it to be like a wow, so that I can help those parents. Yeah, thanks for allowing me to share, Jan.
Of course, Zara. I don't know, I always think of the story that had the most impact on who you became, and because I think that that shows people like, if there was a particular circumstances that stands out for you, which was obvious to you in that, in your like development of who you became, like and what you learned, that I think is so valuable because I think those are the stories that we all need to hear, because those are inspirational, right? Those are the things that people realize that there's like that things are possible. It gives people hope, when they're in really hard situations. So I think those are the stories to me that resonate with people. And then there are like those simple stories that have, like those simple things that happen to you, which you really remember, which had also a great impact. So it doesn't have to be like this monumental event because it's around what you kind of took from it. And I think those are the most powerful.
Thank you, Jen.
Seamus?
Could I mention something like, and this came up in a conversation with Jason earlier as well. Like, I meet Jason Johnson. You were a great introductor of that connection to Jason, John. And the whole idea of this metaphor around the cell, the individual cell, as a metaphor for how we are ourselves, is kind of coming to mind. And just try and describe it as best I can. I know we're coming to the end. So the cell has a beautiful membrane, a cell membrane around each individual cell. And it kind of speaks to Brené Brown's boundaries around the power of boundaries and um, the essence of boundaries and creating firm boundaries. And the cell membrane represents that for us as individuals, are allowing us to honor ourselves and allowing us to honor all the billions of cells around us and allow us to communicate. And we communicate through receptors, beautiful, beautiful pathways or channels in the cell membrane that allow us to be the cell we are and allow us to communicate to other cells around us in the most beautiful way. And I kind of go back to what Jack Cornfield writes about this busy mind, this mind that's so busy and harsh and unkind can often clutter these membranes and allow and block the flow of how we communicate with ourselves and how we communicate with others. But particularly, let's call it these external receptors in the membrane really block and get clogged up with these busy thoughts and disconnect from, allowing us to communicate in the natural way that we're meant to. And, as I was reading Jack Cornfield and as I was, speaking to Jason earlier in this conversation, it's amazing how it's come up again. It's about the heart is the ultimate internal receptor that opens that channel to who we truly are. So I think it's a lovely metaphor, maybe, and it goes back to what the question, I guess, Zara, you just, put out there as well, is that the heart is the ultimate receptor, basically. The heart is a gateway to who we truly are, what we stand for. It's a kind of spiritual receptor to our insides, to our true being. And those external receptors in the membrane, like if you consider where we are the individual cell, and we have these inputs and outputs through our language, through our senses, through our electromagnetic radiation from the heart, we've all these senses that are inputs and outputs that somehow these get clogged through the busyness of this narrative, the busyness of what we tell ourselves. And when we, through the pause, can begin to just create the space, it can be a great way of like visualizing the immediate payback of the unclogging, the uncluttering of the channels that happens through that process. So when we pause and stop and observe, we're literally immediately beginning to unblock and unclog those receptors, both to others outside and influence and allow other people's receptors, other people's to observe their own receptors, both to their external world and to their internal world. So I think maybe it's a great way, Zara, I suppose, to maybe indirectly answer your question, is that the better we pause, the better we'll be able to identify and open up that internal receptor channel of the heart to identify those stories that really we know from the heart and the wisdom of the heart, going back to the title of the book, that they will be the stories through the space that we identify as being, this is my inner knowing. I know these are the ones that I need to share. And again, we use the external receptors as the channel then to actually share what's coming up for us through that internal channel out to the internal world through clear, beautifully clear, crisp, effective channels that influence the channels for everyone around us as well, I guess. So yeah, I hope that helps maybe as a kind of descriptor of what's come out of today's conversation, John, I suppose.
Thank you, Seamus. Now, I have got lots of stories that I've written out, and that whole question Jan asked earlier goes back to when I was 4.5. It's the story behind the brand, it's just how I view people in general, and a little bit about the upbringing. But the actual major why behind the solution I have to offer to help the parents, I'm looking for that story. So the Tri-Summit story I'm talking about is the problem, followed by an insight, followed through to breakthrough. And I'm looking to, like, there've been so many incidents. I'm looking for that one story for the beginning, the one story in the middle, and the one story at the end. And like, which ones do I pull together, if that makes sense? That's what I'm kind of playing with at the moment. But yeah, I've written a lot of stories throughout the years. So that's not an issue. It's the selection of which one, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I may can have separate calls there. I'd love to help you with that, but I think you will know from your inside out through the space. I think that's all I suppose I was trying to articulate as well. The space will deliver, I think, and the wise heart will deliver, and you will know. But that's my own experience, I guess. Yeah. But maybe let's have a chat.
Okay. Thank you, Seamus. Thank you, Jan and Mary.
Oh,
No problem. I love the really valuable insight, Seamus, that you shared. And this is what I've been learning for myself over the past few years, is that the power in the story is always when you speak from heart, when you speak your authentic truth, when you speak from the essence of who you are. Um, Sometimes you have to have a variety of stories, so that's to share with people, because um, you have to allow that space for people to resonate, if that story is for them or if it's not for them. Maybe another one will be at some point, but it's allowing them that space so that they can take that stop, that pause, to sort of bring that inside it and see how that resonates with them. There can't be force. It just has to be gentle and there, and let them, you know, hear your story, because, we might all have different experiences, but sometimes you might hear the same sort of theme in a story from various people, but sometimes they just need to hear it in your voice. And that's the voice they need to hear in order to integrate that into their hearts. So it's just keep going. You're on the right path. And I thank you all for bringing such valuable insights and just holding space here and bringing your valuable energy here. And um, yeah, so hopefully being mindful of the time here, and the fact that people might have other stuff to be going on. Jan, do you think this is an opportunity, once you give your valuable insights as usual, just to begin with the meditation?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'd love to move into the meditation, Mary Jane. And one of the things that, Seamus, thank you for that beautiful description of the cell. I absolutely love that. And all I could think of is the breath being a cleanser of those receptors. It's located in the same, section, the same chakra. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, the breath, clears out those receptors. And so just that image. So being a scientist by background, and, we spent a lot of time around cells, those receptors, the clearing out of the receptors so that they're able to get the proper or the beautiful input that they're supposed to receive, right? Um, they, you know, in in multiple reactions, you have things that bind to the cell, obviously, that should not be there, whether they be toxins or debris or whatever, pollutants, things that are supposed to not bind but do and hinder this, the cell from functioning properly. And you clear out those receptors so that the proper things can come in. So think of the breath as a tool to clear out your heart, the receptors of the cells that you have. So I will move into the meditation today. Begin by finding a comfortable position. Feel free to sit or lie down, whatever feels most supportive for you right now. Let your eyes gently close or soften your gaze if that feels better. Take a moment and just arrive in this moment. Stop. Take a pause. No matter what was happening before this moment, allow yourself to simply stop. Set the intention to be fully present here and now. There's nothing to fix, nothing to change, just be. And say, in this moment, I pause and create space for calm. Take a breath. Bring your awareness to your breath. Inhale slowly and exhale gently. Feel the air entering your body and leaving. Let the breath be an anchor, a steady and soothing anchor. Take a few conscious breaths. You might even lengthen the exhale to help calm the nervous system. Inhaling for a count of 3 or 4 and exhaling for a count of 4 or 5. Inhale, exhale. With each breath, I return to myself. I return home. Observe. Now turn your attention inward. Gently notice what's present for you without judgment. What thoughts are moving through your mind? What emotions are you feeling right now? Notice any physical sensations in your body. Is there any areas of tightness, ease, warmth, coolness? There's no need to analyze, just observe. Be a kind witness to your own experience. I observe my inner landscape with compassion and curiosity. Proceed. Now ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? How can I move forward with greater clarity, calm, and care? What could be my next step? Maybe it's a shift in action. Maybe it's a softer attitude toward yourself or someone else. Whatever it is, set an intention to proceed mindfully with awareness. I move forward with intention, grounded in presence. Take one final deep breath, and as you exhale, gently wiggle fingers and toes. Begin to return to the room or to your space, carrying this awareness with you. And when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes. Sometimes one conscious breath, taking a deep breath in the middle of chaos, is a revolutionary act. Tara Brach. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We appreciate each and every one of you being here, and the energy brought and the insights, which are always so valuable. We really treasure you all. If you're not connected with us on Facebook or LinkedIn or in our groups, please join. We would love to have you. We are, hopefully here every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So feel free to come back. Our next workshop that Mary Jane and I are doing is April 27th, which is at 2 p.m. And we are really excited, rooted and radiant grounding and rejuvenation practices for spring. So that should be amazing. We have lots of information on LinkedIn and Facebook about that workshop. But if you have any questions, feel free to connect with us and just have a conversation. And yes, if you celebrate Easter, have a blessed Easter. If you're still celebrating Passover, happy Passover. And yeah,
Have a blessed weekend, everyone. And just as a final thought, because the meditation was like, yeah, just a reminder that you can return to this practice at any time, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. So thank you.
yes. Thank you all.